Welcome to another episode of Montana Shares, your opportunity to find out about the nonprofits that make our state so great. I'm your host, Bill Crane, and today I've got Erin from Montana Watershed Conservation Coalition.
Coordination Council, but
I knew it was CCs. I was just making them up. I should have had
one.
notes. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
So since I butchered the title, let's let you dive in and tell what you guys do.
Sure, yeah. So the Montana Watershed Coordination Council, we're a network of locally based conservation organizations across the state of Montana. Montana is known for its rich wildlife habitat, for the quality of our environment, and also the people living on the landscape that are willing to work together to keep that landscape healthy. But we see a lot of different things changing about our landscape, our climate, our economy, and that has communities really concerned and interested in talking to one another and talking to their neighbors about how do we maintain the values within our watersheds that are most important to us. And so these watershed organizations are an opportunity to convene those community conversations around natural resource management.
Mm-hmm. And last time we were talking, what did we decide? We are headwaters to 2 or 3 of the major national watersheds for the whole country.
Correct, yeah, the Missouri and the Columbia Basin, which are the 2 largest.
Do we have anything that goes north to Canada?
Yeah, we do, yeah, right up here, out of Glacier.
That'd be claiming a lot, though. It is that tiny speck.
Right.
But two huge major watersheds start here. So decisions we make a big difference for tons of people downstream.
Absolutely, especially as some of the changes we're seeing in terms of the way water supply occurs, how water is stored and utilized in Montana has a direct impact on the water quality and water quantity that flows downstream. One of my board members always says water has a memory. Mm-hmm. So if you think about something having a timestamp, like a memory, we're at the very top. So whatever happens to water here creates the framework for the water that ends up throughout the rest of the country.
Yeah, we're important. We'll go with that. So you've updated your strategic plan. You've got some stuff to talk about, right?
Right, yeah, so MWCC has been around for almost 30 years, but we've only been a nonprofit since 2013. And so we've really been focusing the last couple of years on what is the greatest value that we can provide these local organizations, being a small organization ourselves. We've really focused in on 2 directives. One is making more capacity resources, funding and technical resources available to local watershed organizations. So we're growing our watershed fund. We're looking at distributing upwards of $200,000 this year across the state. And this is a way for our local groups to demonstrate their impact statewide because they're making a local impact in their watershed, but also in partnership with the other watersheds neighboring and across the state are making an even greater impact. So we're looking to demonstrate, how many miles of stream can be restored or improved, how many acres of our state can become more resilient as a result of statewide investment in watershed activities.
Okay. And what's the second part of it?
Yeah, so the second part is related. We've started a Watershed Stories campaign. As I mentioned, our watershed groups are really active on the ground in their local communities, but they're not so great at tooting their own horn and telling about their successes. So we've started a campaign where we're highlighting individual watershed groups. The first watershed group that we've highlighted is the Musselshell Watershed. That's the Musselshell Water Coalition is the organization that's right here in central Montana. And as you can see, the quote from the coordinator is, "The river binds people together." So it's really looking at not just natural resources, but realizing that natural resources and watersheds in particular provide this basis for a community to come together. And it's really the people and the livelihoods of the individuals on the landscape that move this work forward. So our goal here is to do that communication so that the successes of our local watershed groups are being heard across the state and even across the country.
Which is a great idea because I think when we're sitting here talking about we're the headwaters for 2 major water systems, that can sort of go over people's heads, but we as humans are designed by millennia of storytelling. And storytelling is a way that we really do access data probably a lot better.
Sure, which is tough for us in the science world to wrap
Right,
our mind
us-
around
us
sometimes.
geeks.
Yeah, it's not our strength really. And so actually we've focused not only on this campaign, but we host a symposium every other year. And this year we'll have our symposium in Whitefish, October 10th through the 12th. And the theme is advancing conservation through effective communication. So looking at the words we use and how we even talk about our natural resources as being key to funding our work, but also just accomplishing more and engaging more people.
I know that one of our other groups, I don't remember which one it is, I think it's the Montana History Foundation, they do grant writing workshops, but they don't do it for people that just want grants for history. That's so important to be able to tell stories that they do that for anyone who wants to come in, basically, so that anyone can benefit. It might be something to think about, it's just like anyone can benefit from the ability to tell stories.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and there's just multiple levels of storytelling that can benefit the work of these local groups too. I mean, certainly talking about what their organization does can help bring in outside resources, but also their primary function is engaging other community members. And so thinking about how we talk about our work in a way that more and more people want to sign up.
Right. And so how many of these or how many watersheds will be participating in this project?
We will highlight 7 watersheds this year in 2018, and we already have a growing list for 2019. So it's obviously shown its worth in terms of people signing up to participate. And we ultimately have upwards of 60 watershed organizations across the state, and so we plan to just continue year after year highlighting more and more organizations.
It's a great opportunity to keep putting this really critical issue in front of the public and in front of all these people on a regular basis.
I hope so. I don't think it's uncommon now to think about our media as somewhat discouraging, as polarizing, even crisis-oriented these days. And one of the challenges we have in storytelling is all of our groups are very solution-oriented. We're not focusing on a particular crisis or threat. Those are often associated with getting people engaged and paying attention, but ultimately these groups are about long-term solutions to community prosperity and natural resource management, which it's tough to get the drive behind that story. But I hope that as these stories gain more traction, that we can actually kind of instill a little bit of hope, that we could focus on something positive like coming together at the community level, and that might encourage people generally.
I think you touched on polarization. That is such a huge negative effect on, I'm just going to say it out loud, on both sides of the aisle. Working together is what gets us solutions, and so working for nonpartisan solutions I think is something that should be celebrated without a doubt, because that's where we're going to get a lot of work done in the trenches without the big banner squabbling. Right.
Well, and that's actually where I get a little bit excited, because I've had the opportunity just in the past couple of years to connect with other networks in other states. And what's interesting to find is how ahead of the curve we are a little bit in Montana as far as how many local groups we have and how diverse their membership is and their participation. And I think it really speaks to Montana culture and our Montana way of life, that ultimately we can look at our neighbors across the watershed and politics play a role, but they don't really inhibit us from getting together around the table and figuring out just how to fix one fencing project, or just how to manage a little bit better during a drought. So I think it really speaks to our integrity and the quality of the people here.
I think it does, without a doubt. I know that no matter what your politics are, if you're broke down, someone's probably going to help you out or pull you out of the ditch or whatever, and is very much of a Montana tradition. So do you have anything else that you want to mention before we wrap her all up for the day?
I hope people check us out on the website. We revised our website last year, so that's mtwatersheds.org. You can find a directory of all the watershed organizations across the state. And, ultimately this is more about getting to know your local group than it is MWCC. So I hope you check it out and connect with your local watershed group.
And the next time you go turn on your water faucet, you should be thinking about that, what your watershed's all about.
Right, and where it goes from there.
Right. Okay, well, super. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Bill.
And as always, I want to thank everyone for tuning in as well. So have a great evening.